You're very welcome to our end April market update from Fairstone Ireland. Delighted you can join us here today. It has been a very interesting month for investment markets. When you look at everything that's going on in the world, particularly the conflict in Middle East, protests, rising oil prices, you may have expected to see really negative news on how markets have been performing, but I'm glad to tell you that we've actually seen some quite positive news from the investment world over the month of April. Some really extraordinary results as well. The US stock market, it's the biggest stock market in the world. We talk about it very frequently when it comes to these updates because typically it accounts for about 70% of global world markets that had a very strong month. What has it been driven by? Well, the market's probably looking a little bit beyond the conflict, seeing some signs of, with a continuing ceasefire, that we may see a resolution to the conflict that's there and starting to refocus on the fundamentals. So it's looking at economic growth, which is pretty okay in the States, and company earnings, which have been really strong. And the big drivers of company earnings, what have we seen? Again, we're back talking about technology, artificial intelligence. These have been the very big drivers across the month. So really good news. The Nasdaq index really led the charge across the month, up about 15%, real surge during the month of April, backed by very strong news on company results, but also big spending on the way of the future, artificial intelligence likely to do very well. Outside of technology, we see continuing geopolitical tension starting to feed into some other parts of the market, particularly into what we call consumer staples. So anything like that's going to be affected by what we call commodity prices, particularly oil and food stuff, inevitably is going to be impacted by the markets. That also feeds into the bond markets across the world. So bonds tend to be more sensitive to interest rates. So rising food and oil prices tend to lead to rising inflation, and bonds do not like rising inflation because that tends to lead to increased interest rates. And markets have turned to expect to see increased interest rates across the world over the rest of this year. Let's look a little bit outside of the United States. The Far East and emerging markets have had a very strong month again. Emerging markets, been benefiting from signs of improvement in trade. And again, the technology world is feeding in here with anything to do with semiconductors doing so well. There's an index called the SOX index, and the SOX index was up about 47% right throughout the month. I mean, that's spectacular performance. And again, it's signs that people are looking at markets and saying, are we likely to see improved economic conditions as the year progresses? Are we seeing the world looking beyond the conflict in the Middle East at the moment? So lots of positive news in the investment world out there. Not all of it even, so it's very difficult to predict from month to month which market is likely to do best. Within a lot of our funds, we have been looking at, Japan and emerging markets definitely likely to continue to do very well. But also we're seeing strong earnings coming through from the United States and a good reason to increase what we allocate to that market as well. So some other markets that we've been looking at across the month of April, the European stock markets, have had a very difficult time so far this year, actually did really well during the month of April. Defence stocks doing well, some of the European oil stocks also performing very well. And that theme we saw occurring in the UK as well. UK has some of the big oil majors, your BPs and Shells and so on, are on the FTSE 100 index. Again, that would have boosted prices during that month. And I've mentioned oil a lot. The rise in oil prices has absolutely continued, up about 10% during the month. And gold, which had a little bit of a shaky run over the earlier part of this year, has rebounded again and up about 5% during the month of April. So when you look at across the board, many different ways of investing have had a strong month. Bonds a little bit less so, a little bit weaker during the month of April, but broadly very positive month from an investment perspective. So when you look at how your money's invested, we will always say to you on these calls, diversification is absolutely key. Making sure that you spread your money across all of these different ways because different parts of the market lead different times. So the key lesson is don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Make sure that you've got that wide level of diversification that can ensure that you have that more stable return over time. If you want to find more about this, please do come and talk to us. Go to fairstone.ie and you can arrange a consultation with us then. So hope you got plenty from the call here today. Look forward to talking to you again next month.